All right, thank you for joining us today. Everybody, hello. I am Pooja Singh. I'm a senior analyst with the technology research here at Adapt. And today we have with us Claudine Ogilvie. I'm very excited for this conversation today. For everybody out there, Claudine is one of our leading CIOs in Australia. She's very focused on technology, strategy, and leadership. With over 2 decades of experience, she is a former CIO at Jetstar Ridley Group, focusing on strategy and digital transformation. What's really exciting for me is, Claudine, in the past few years, you have pivoted on your journey from being a CIO to now being an entrepreneur at HivePix, which is a data connection and orchestration platform, along with being a founder at technology strategy services firm, which is Ogilvie and Consulting. I was also very excited to see your passion when it comes to AI, quantum computing, and data science. I can see that you are a part of the cohort at Stanford and MIT when it comes to these educational programs. So, very excited to be here with you, and I would love for you to share your journey with us. Especially your focus on technology and having a career in technology. What were the motivation factors? Why was this an area of interest for you, and how you really started on this?
Yeah, thanks, Pooja. I guess in terms of my journey, I didn't start off very technical. I started off more in sort of a bigger, broader business, marketing, product management style roles. But then when I started doing strategy at KPMG, I very quickly started to realize that technology was at the heart of differentiation, was at the heart of strategic, the heart of, frankly, almost every strategy.
Yep.
And the disruption. And that sort of was the beginning, I think, of my passion for technology, and delved into tech executive roles. And that, I have to say, a lot of that lent into me going into more and more technical, I suppose, endeavors. And I think there are a lot of people who might start off very, very technical, and then they, go into less and less technical roles. Whereas me, I've come at it the other way around, and I'm absolutely loving it. And look, I think that's part of the topic of today's conversation is around women in tech.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of women don't necessarily understand what a career in tech could look like, and how broad the breadth of the different roles and that exist in technology. I don't think I really understood it back in my day. Certainly not what the potential was, and it's really truly broad. And I think, the distribution of women in tech today is still really varied. I think, there's some really great stats out there. 46% of women in tech end up in design and management roles, 30% in data engineering, science and analytics, and just 8% in DevOps and cloud roles. And I think that's that we can start to shift the dial on that. Particularly in terms of getting the foot in the door. Just getting the foot in the door. I think, as with myself, once you start playing in the technology space, I think new worlds and new opportunities start to open up to yourself. And you mentioned, as part of my journey, I've more recently really lent into quantum computing and AI. Love it
Very
so
exciting.
much. It's so interesting. And I think these less, I want to say, newer or less, they're not less established, but they have been typically less visible fields. Also might, feel a little bit less entrenched in terms of the gender participation potentially, but also because they're moving so fast, I think there's a real opportunity to women to lean in a little bit more. There are also some fantastic female I'm going to say leaders out there, like Michelle Simmons, who's in quantum computing, who leads quantum silicon computing here in Australia, and I think can be considered a global leader in this space. So you're really starting to see, I think, the emergence of some fantastic I'm going to say, lighthouses in this space. And I also think that from the perspective of, say, AI, there's also this a part of AI where, this idea of empathy and ethics and, is in huge demand. It's a big space that needs to be addressed.
Exactly.
It's not just about the technology back end, but it's about how we build the tech with those things in mind as well. And I actually think that plays into women's benefit, because scientific studies have consistently showed that women have these types of are more likely to have those kinds of traits, and emotional intelligence and empathy and
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
empathy, yeah, and that we need to start building this into our tech. When it comes to empathy and ethics, and they're really complex topics. I don't think anyone has the answers, because when you think about ethics, it's something that philosophers have been deliberating about for hundreds of years, and we're not
Yes.
about to come up with the solutions today, as in this is the answer or that's the answer. It's practically by definition grey, but we are being asked to encode decisions, whether we like it or not, in our automated vehicles, in our AI models, in what's right, what's wrong, what kind of biases do we want to get rid of and why. And these are the sorts of spaces that are utterly fascinating, in my opinion, and I think really opens the door, I think, for I hope greater interest and participation from women.
Absolutely. I mean, this is what we want to tell our readers. See, the challenge that we see today is there is this construct that if you want to be in tech, or if you want to be a part of a product team or a tech organization, you need to have an engineering background, or you need to have like a very high background when it comes to coding, being a developer, or really good at algorithm design and mathematics. And there's this preconceived notion that's out there. But I think what you're sharing with us is that even if you come from a traditionally non-tech background, you can, like, this is the time, there is opportunity for you to out there to go and get into tech and start experiencing various aspects of it. It's not just you have to be a coder or a developer. There's so much out there once the product has been made, right? So that's definitely fascinating to know. My other question to you is, if we talk about skill sets in general and trends when it comes to technologies out there, what do you think are those top 5 trends which are out there, which you think are really going to shape the way our businesses are being done today? And what do you think are these skills which should be on a checklist for people out there? For men and women both, actually, when it comes to pursuing those roles or being a part of those trends and innovations which are out there.
For clarity, do you mean top technology trends? Is that what you mean?
Trends, and what skills do you think are important to support those trends?
Yeah. Look, at the risk of stating the obvious, yeah. I mean, clearly AI is old technology, but last year certainly it's had its, call it, a moment in the sun, and it's not just generative AI, but it has augmented and call it supercharged every other form of AI as well, from AI ML or language models, and so I think every company and their dog have spun up a proof of concept or a pilot in AI last year, and this year is going to be the year where boards and executive are going to start demanding value off the back of that. And so, I really think this is a space that, it is going to be supercharged, because it's not just AI, it's going to be the data. So AI is one clear trend, but that's driving, I think, a trend in data quality and uplifting data governance, because it's crap in, crap out when it comes to
it's the
data.
foundational. Yes.
Yeah. And if you want to deliver the value that AI promises, you've really got to lean into this stuff. And so this is starting to change the way companies are addressing that at scale. And so that trend's driving that trend. The other one, of course, is cybersecurity and technology risk management. It's hit the headlines consistently over the last few years, but it's not going away. It's only going to become an increasing issue. And again, Gen AI is now heightening this issue through deep fakes. And, it is becoming more and more contentious. But, of course, AI and tech can also be part of the solution, not just the problem. So these are areas that I think will continue to just become higher and higher and higher on the executive and the board agendas, that cyber and technology risk management. And then if I were to project one forward, perhaps is in 5 to 6 years' time, we do expect that there will be a quantum computing breakthrough in terms of their scalability and their ability to start delivering on really useful business use case, or even, for example, breaking Shaw's algorithm in the cybersecurity space. So quantum computing, albeit I think it's picking up pace in the background, its moment isn't that far away either. And so I think if I were to sort of think about a trend that is slowly building momentum, companies are starting to implement quantum resilient algorithms now because their data is getting stolen. Even though it's encrypted, they can't unencrypt it now. If that data is still valuable in 5 or 6 years' time, they're going to want to encrypt it now. So there's some really interesting trends in there. From a skill set perspective, look, I mean, if you flow down from that, I think women can and should lean into it, and you can start very high level. Strategic implications of AI. Same thing with quantum computing. It doesn't have to be deeply technical, but then choosing perhaps a space that interests you deeply, and you I think there's a real opportunity to become a technical expert in that space. Cybersecurity has so many facets that are so interesting, fascinating. The people aspect is just as important as the technology aspect.
Yes.
The psychosocial implications are, I think, completely interesting. And then of course, you've got when it comes to data and that side of things, converting, once you sort of get past that tech piece, converting data into insights is a unique skill in itself. And it's not easy. You need real business nous to be able to do that. I don't want to discourage the technical piece, because I think once you get that interest going, then it's so much easier to deep dive into the technical, because you have the bigger picture. But certainly that's how I think about it, and you know what you're trying to achieve. And so my inclination is then to deep dive into the technical to better understand, bottom up, grassroots up, how are you delivering those outcomes. So I think women have an opportunity to maybe they start in the less technical areas, maybe they start in the strategic and the psychosocial and all those pieces, but there is no reason why you wouldn't or couldn't then also deep dive into the technical. In fact, I would argue they should. Yeah, I think it's really interesting stuff. Yeah,
that's fantastic, Claudine. That's a very pragmatic approach to actually go ahead and build your knowledge and your skill set in this. So that is fantastic. So now that you have shared, what trends we see emerging on the market, the second question that comes to my mind is, as an organizations, how ready are we when it comes to harnessing value? Okay, so I think my next question for you is really around what's your take when it comes to Australian tech industry in creating that right balance in terms of people that they are hiring, creating a gender diverse, inclusive workforce in the coming years in order to really hail value from these trends. So where do you think, how how ahead in the game do you think Australian tech industry is, and what do you really see as a major challenge?
Yeah, look, I have to say, I don't think the situation is fabulous. So we look, 35 years ago, there's some really great stats that McKinsey had that I think are insightful. 35 years ago, women earned roughly a third of computer science degrees, but by 2016, the share had fallen to less than 20%. And it's anticipated that moving forward, less than 25% of our ICT specialists will be female, which is, barely more, frankly, than the 19% or so that that we're seeing in positions globally today. So I don't know how, but we're going backwards. And I think there are a number of reasons for that. And part of it, I think, if I could touch on the recent backlash that we've had in diversity and inclusion programs, is that, gender diversity programs can't operate in a vacuum. They can't operate in isolation of other policies, cultural and structural norms. And I think certainly addressing gender diversity is a multidimensional issue. And we can't just say, anchor on like one simple metric like hiring targets and then go this is how we're going to fix our issue. And I think this is in part of the issues that are driving the challenges that companies have faced today. I mean, albeit there's good intention, they're not matching the intention and the policies with funding and true resourcing to really shift the dial. And it's, multi-dimensional funding. I mean, you think we're finding, they try to, I mentioned shift the demographic inequalities through hiring targets, but they won't necessarily change unless you also fix some of the biases in the recruitment processes and policies as well. Where, for example, there's a smaller pool of female candidates compared to the male candidates, which is often the case in IT and technology roles. You probably need to find some funding to get perhaps external help or a specialised firm to help you find qualified female candidates, not just any female. They have to be qualified. And then there are, of course, the more structural issues like parental leave, which need to be addressed. I mean, I think, the bulk, the system that's in place expects that women will take the leave. It doesn't even give men the choice to take the leave if they want to take the choice, if they want to choose to take the leave instead of the woman.
Exactly.
We're sort of entrenching somehow this one-sided disadvantage of taking time out of the workforce instead of encouraging a structure where it is somehow shared. And, a lot of Scandinavian countries have already put those types of structures in place. Yeah, go ahead.
No, please go ahead. The only thing I was this is from my personal point of view, but yes, I mean, one of the things that I have also realized is that let's say you have a leader, who has given a female leader who has given like 10-15 years to an organization, and let's say after 2 years, she wants to take a gap, she has had a baby, she wants to spend some time and enjoy that part of the life, but it becomes such a challenge for women after that to come back into the workforce, right? From a recruitment point of view. And really, I mean, even recruiters have this thing, okay, you have a two-year gap in your resume. But I think the way that people look at that gap, it's not very positive, right? It comes with that a negative tinge that, okay, there's a gap. So, and a lot of what you have done before it generally not taken into consideration because there's a term gap associated. So that's something I felt,
Yeah, a gap. And it shouldn't matter whether it's women or men. And I think we need to encourage structures where that's a shared thing, make it possible, because even if they, the fathers want to do that, it's really difficult. We made it very difficult for them to do that, right? And maybe on a tangent topic, I also think, honestly, we need to do a better job of engaging men. And I think that is a a big challenge that's holding us back today as well. So I mean, women have made extraordinary progress over the last few decades to achieve what we've achieved today in terms of gender equality on so many levels. And, you know, as much as I sort of paint a picture of some of the industry going backwards, we have made amazing progress.
Yes.
But we're all wondering why it's stagnated. Why is this not going anywhere anymore? You know, it's plateaued. I'm pretty sure, if not going backwards. And I personally think one of the big reasons is that, you know, we're not going to make progress if we're only talking to the converted. You know, so we need to better engage men. We need to make it not so scary. You know, there are a lot of angry women out there, and probably, and justifiably so, might I say. But it's not going to help us if we can't constructively engage the entire population on this issue. So I actually think it's as much about what we're trying to achieve, but how we're trying to achieve it as well. And we need help. We can't do it on our own. And so that's probably another big piece of the puzzle that we are yet to adequately address.
All right, that's definitely great to know. So thank you. I think my next question is really on being an ally. So what I want to understand is, as a message to a lot of women out there, when it comes to finding mentors or being an ally to those people out there, what are those engagements that you can have in order to, you know, expand on your network, reach out for help, you know, look for mentorship? And it applies to both women and male leaders. So how do you think those leaders can better reach out to the workforce, women in the workforce, and, you know, offer their help or support? So what do you think is most practical? What models do you think generally work well? Like, I know a lot of organizations have a mentorship model, like they launch a mentorship program, right? Which is basically to help new hires which have come in the company. So I wanted to learn, like, in your experience, what do you think has been very effective? I know a lot of mentors have like an open door policy, right? So what, just wanted to understand from you, like, what has worked for you?
Yeah. So touching on the coaching and mentoring plays a really important role. I think that's very important. But I also think that, and there's a lot of structures out there, a lot of programs that provide coaching, mentoring, etc., support, and they need to continue, and they need to be as inclusive and expansive as they can. But I think the missing piece that we need to get better at is sponsorship, not just mentorship. And I have to say that, generically speaking, women need to step up in this space. I think, you know, men have been typically very good at this amongst themselves and within their groups, at sponsoring each other into roles, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's great. But we also need to be doing that amongst women, and across men and women. But somehow women have struggled with that a little bit more. So that's something I think is worth thinking about. And this idea, I think women are a bit shyer to showcase themselves, right? And you know, from kids to teenagers to young professionals, we need to be more visible. You know, and it's harder to be what you can't see. And I think women have a tendency to not want to put themselves out there. To, you know, how do we make it easier for women to step up, to be more visible? And, you know, there's this idea of, you know, we don't like the spotlight too much. But it doesn't have to be a scary thing. It can be quite a genuine experience. It can be something that is quite humbling, to be honest. But you know, how do we help women help each other, but also become more visible? Because there are some amazing female leaders out there who, you know, are less likely to put themselves forward. So that's probably another problem to solve.
That's fantastic. Yeah, I mean, just enabling them to understand that instead of looking it as like a limelight, they feeling comfortable to share that. And I think a lot of conversations that we are having today, uh women, we need to showcase these stories, right? Because in some way or the other, it will inspire somebody out there. It could be if they are on a similar journey, or it could be if they have faced a similar situation. You're able to find that common point with that person and associate with them. So I think that's very pivotal what you shared there. I want to be mindful of the time. So I think the last question I really want to ask is, in your view, if there are like three messages, if you want to get it out there, for women who are in tech, who are planning to pursue a career in tech, what are those three things gonna be?
One is, I honestly, tech is hugely diverse. There are so many different facets, and so pick one that really interests you, and invest in, and go hard in that. You can deep dive on the technical, but don't forget that there's also the bigger picture piece, which is often just so incredibly interesting, excuse me, and and probably expansive in terms of the future thinking there. Secondly, don't be afraid to put yourself out there, right? If you happen to be a leader in a space, don't be afraid to put yourself out there, and don't be afraid to be a mentor or even a sponsor to others. When I was sort of mid-career, I went to a lady who I admired deeply and said, "Oh, will you, be my mentor? Will you help me out?" And her response put me back, kind of thing. She went, "Oh, maybe," and I was like, "Oh, okay." She said, "Oh, firstly, I want to know, who are you helping and who are you mentoring?" And in my mind, she said, "I will 100% if I know who you're mentoring. Where are you giving back?" And I didn't think I was senior enough to do that. I undermined my own achievements and my own sort of leadership experience up until that point, right? And I think the message is, no matter where you're at in terms of your career, if there is, if there's anybody who's been in the workforce for less amount of time than you, or anyone who's been working in tech for less amount of time than you, then there is someone you can help mentor and potentially sponsor. So I think that's a good one.